Welcome everyone. This is Shubham Tiwari. I'm the community manager at the Thousand Faces Club. Today we are here to celebrate the art of live sessions as well as to give you a glimpse at the craft of futuristic live presentations and sessions. My guest today, as you can see, is Lux Narayan, who's the co-founder and CEO of StreamAlive. With StreamAlive, you can heighten the experience of live audience engagement on Zoom, YouTube Live, MS Teams, in person, many more. Lux will, add much more details to it. Lux is going to show us how to move your audience from being bored away to blown away. So let's get right into it. Welcome, Lux.
Thank you. Good to be here, Shubham.
So before we dive into the masterclass today, let's set some context by, a couple of questions. So please tell us more about, StreamAlive. How did it come about and why do we need it?
Okay. I'm going to apologize to you in advance because I think you heard this story once, if not twice, but
Yes,
for
I
the
have.
benefit of everybody else. So this is my third rodeo, so to speak, as a startup entrepreneur. The previous one was a company called, or rather is a company, it still continues and it's doing pretty well, is a company called Unmetric. And Unmetric got acquired in the end of 2019, just a few months before the pandemic. And then 2020, for a bunch of reasons, personal and otherwise, me and the co-founding team took a break after the entire team transition. So we had about 75 team members in Unmetric who transitioned to the new company. And then we kind of took a break after that. I very quickly realized that I was kind of incapable of sitting still and taking a break, and used that time to indulge in another pet passion that I had recently rediscovered, which was writing, and decided to use that time to write this book, which I think I've got a copy here, which was in my head for a very long time. It's called Name, Place, Animal, Thing. And essentially the book is about giving better answers to the question, so what do you do, right? When people ask you, so what do you do? All of us typically respond with what it says in the most recent line of our LinkedIn page and stuff. But there's so much more to us as people, right? I mean, look at you, for example. You had a life as a journalist, and here you are having a life at the Thousand Faces Club.
Yeah.
And you're a Jaipurian at heart. I think you're one of the best poster boys for Jaipur tourism from all our conversations. So
I
there's
don't
so
know
many
if it's a
faces to
compliment
us.
or not, but yeah, thank you.
Right. So I mean, to borrow your language, there's 1,000 faces to each of us as well, right? So and I think that's important to bring forward. But anyway, the reason I bring up the book is I binged on a bunch of classes on how to write a book, how to edit a book, how to market a book, how to get Amazon and its algorithm to bless your book. And these were delivered, as you can imagine, in the end of 2020, were delivered on a whole bunch of live platforms. So classes were on Zoom. I mean, not unlike this current session. Classes were on Zoom webinars. They were on Facebook Live. They were on YouTube Live. They were on Google Meet, and all of these different live platforms.
Yeah.
And the class sizes were as little as about 11 students to as much as 1,100 students. And I noticed three distinctive patterns. So in the class which had a 1,100 students on YouTube Live, the chat would fly by faster than the eye can see, right? And the presenters literally struggling to look at it and let alone make sense of it. And then you've got the 11 people session where the presenter wishes that the chat would fly by faster than the eye can see because no one's responding, and it's pretty quiet and dead. And then you've got a middle, which is a few dozens or maybe 100 people or maybe 200 people, where a classic icebreaker question is, hey, where are you joining us from? And people enthusiastically type their responses and answers. And then two of them are eyeballed. Hey, we have Shubham from Jaipur and we've got Jethro from Shillong. And then we ignore the remaining 98 people who've chosen to answer, right? So what was very obvious is that one-to-many communication is kind of broken. It's very, very one-way. It's not two-way.
Yeah.
It's still like a megaphone. It's not like a telephone. And we need to make it a conversational thing as opposed to making it a simple one-way conversation. And that became the germ of the idea that became StreamAlive. Right. So I got in touch with my old co-founders at Unmetric. We reconvened. It's in fact, a lot of the folks are from that old team, including my co-founders. And I mean, I'll spare you all the details on the to and fro's that happened after that and the trials and tribulations. But that idea and that incident translated into what we have today as StreamAlive.
Nice. And we promise that we're not going to ignore any participant today. And we hope that you enjoy this interactive session that is coming up. And I mean, speaking of participants, Lux, who all can use it? because a lot of people are compartmentalized, and you should use this in this condition, in that condition. So please tell us who all can use it.
We're being constantly surprised, actually. So if, disclaimer is, if you ask me this question a month from today, my answer will be even more expansive than it is today, because each time we find someone new using us in very interesting ways. But the way we describe it is, we like to look at it as 4 C's who use us. So there is companies who would use us on Zoom, on Teams, on Google Meet for a whole bunch of meetings, from all hands, meetings, trainings, town halls. All of those are use cases, right? And companies of every shape and size. So you've got companies who might use it for external constituents. You've got companies who might use it for internal constituents. Like right now, we have a company who's got about 5,000 people who are looking to make their town halls and their quarterly addresses by their CEO a lot more inclusive.
Right.
And you've got companies who are using us on webinars, and that's a different thing altogether. This morning, we had a conversation with a company who's looking to use us for an award ceremony, just to make it real-time polling, make it interesting, make it exciting for the audience. So we keep getting constantly surprised on how companies are using us, right? The second C are really creators. And I mean, you're no stranger to the creator economy, but creators come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors. And
Yep.
we're seeing all of that reflected in our user base as well. So if I were to summarize it, I would say it's like, teachers, preachers, coaches, trainers, sellers, entertainers, and everything in between. People who are using it as on platform like YouTube and platforms like Zoom and others. So it's all kinds of flavors of creators. Right? We've got classes. So we've got a few teachers who are using us in classroom situations. We've been used to fantastic effect at IIM Calcutta and IIM Kozhikode. Johns Hopkins used us for a webinar as well. So we find very interesting use cases within the digital and physical classroom. And the last one is conferences, because conferences are ripe for this kind of opportunity. And it's very interesting that in this year, thank God, and the last year, we're kind of getting back to in-person almost with a vengeance. So in the last month alone, we've powered about 3 or 4 conferences. So we powered TIE Dallas, and then we had the TIE Global Summit that happened in Hyderabad with about 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And then we had a college reunion thing that happened that we powered as well, just to make it more interactive and more fun. And each of these translates into other opportunities. We had someone from the Indian Army contact us afterwards and say, we're looking at a get together of a whole bunch of Army cadets. Can we use StreamAlive to make it fun? And absolutely. So that's why I said each time that answer kind of expands and becomes bigger and bigger, which is fascinating.
Nice. So what's the most interesting feedback you've received about StreamAlive so far?
Oh, wow. Okay. So a lot of feedback. I mean, the good thing is, when we had our private beta, we had about 100+ people using us. And between me and my co-founders, we've spoken to each and every one of them, which is fantastic because it gives us firsthand feedback from the proverbial horse's mouth to improve the product. Yeah. Which is also fantastic because you get to hear so many stories of what people are doing, right? So that's been happening quite a bit. I think I have a bit of recency bias here, so I'm going to go with a recent email we got about 3 to 4 days back. And this was from a doctor, Dr. Phil, if I recall his name right. And Dr. Phil was using one of our most recent features, which is this run-off show feature, which allows you to intersperse slides and interactions. And the doctor actually shared his screenshot of how he is using it, asked us a couple of questions on how he could refine things, and then came back and said, and this was the most gratifying feedback we'd gotten, this is a doctor who trains other doctors.
Okay.
Right. So we could see from the run-off show that he had, sessions where he was teaching people about hematology. He was teaching them about thyroid function. He was teaching them about different medical conditions. And then he would show the results of a kind of pathology test and ask people a question, the other doctors who were under training. And he made it interactive by getting them to respond and seeing which responses they gave. And he just made an entire doctor training exercise a lot more interactive, right, and therefore a lot more, very, very salient and easier for people, for the students to retain information, right?
Right.
So he came back to us and said, I'm using it to train doctors with fantastic effect. I love it. And here are 4 things that I think you guys should build.
Nice.
With some very obvious things we missed altogether, like slide numbers for each of the slides. Now you would think in retrospect that that's duh, you got to do that. To some fantastic features that we hadn't ever imagined. But what was most gratifying was the fact that here was a doctor who's probably been training other doctors for years, but he had redefined how he was running his training sessions. And he was telling us that it was becoming a lot more interactive, a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, and therefore the students were participating better. So I would extrapolate to say that StreamAlive is helping make better doctors out there, which to us is very, very gratifying.
Yeah, it's a big compliment. I mean, in a way, when we look at it, and clearly, the future of live audience engagement is, of course, interactive, more fun. But still, I would ask you this question because you are sort of pioneering this work. What's the future of live audience engagement? Let's say 3 years down the line, because AI has already made waves in 2022, and it's picking up only. So, what do you think lies in the future?
Yeah, so you talked about AI, and that's a good segue actually, right? We have a lot of talk around Chat GPT and AI and DALI and everything else that is happening. And if you think about it, I mean, why do we convene for the synchronity of what is happening today? Why do we convene for a live event? Why do we go and physically attend a live event? It's because, yes, AI is great and fantastic, and we actually leverage a fair amount of AI in our own platform. But there's also something to be said about human connection.
Right.
Now, we started off with, and we continue to focus on how do you drive more and more human connection in the digital world, like in Zoom rooms like this, and we'll show a few examples of that down the line. But we started thinking about how do you replicate the real world in the virtual world, right? How do you bring elements of the kind of connectivity you see, the kind of high-fiving and hugs you do when you meet somebody after a long time in a physical conference, and acknowledging people and looking for body language and cues? How do you bring those things into the virtual world? I mean, the starting point really was, we've all been in this situation where either you're in the audience or the podium and you ask the audience a question like, raise your hands if you agree. And then
Yeah.
you can eyeball and say that 3/4 of the audience actually raised their hand. How do you do similar experiences out here in the digital world, right? So that was the initial genesis, saying how do you replicate real world behavior in the digital world? But here's what we're finding fascinating, Shubham.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, and we continue to do that. There's also a use case to be done about bringing, what do you call virtual world interactions into the real world.
Right.
Let me give you an example, right? As I mentioned that last month we powered a few in-person events like the Thai Global Summit and things. Now, I've been in enough conferences where I have a conversation with somebody or I have something in my head and then I'm talking and we're a little too loud and somebody turns around and says, shh, because the speaker is talking, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's a bit of a dichotomy, because here we are in this event or conference because we want to connect with each other, but we're being asked to keep quiet because there's a speaker talking, although we have an opinion on the subject.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, something very powerful in Zoom and YouTube and everything is the chat, where even though a speaker is talking, people are chatting right now in our Zoom room
It
right
does come
now.
alive. Yeah.
Right? And you and I are not getting disturbed because we are still able
Yeah.
to have our conversation without being distracted. So we said, can we take chat and create that in a real life event where you create a temporal chat which exists in that time and space for that 1 hour that there's a conference, and allows people to share their thought on the future of electric vehicles, for example, if that is a panel discussion that is happening. So
Yeah.
while the conversation is happening on stage, you have a parallel chat stream where everybody in that physical room is connected through a virtual chat room for that time and space, and they're having a conversation without actually disturbing the thing. So that's a great example of taking something in the virtual world and bringing it to life in the real world, because I think there are ideas that can cross-pollinate both ways, and that's a pretty central thesis for us at StreamAlive.
Yeah.
What can you take from digital into physical? What can you take from physical into digital? And there's a lot of fascinating things that happen in that.
So speaking of fascinating things, let's dive into it. You can show us a glimpse of StreamAlive.
Happy to. Thank you. I see there are a few questions. I had a point on the questions as well. We can address questions. Let me just fire up StreamAlive so I can use the AI in StreamAlive to actually pull questions from the chat. What
Yes.
I thought I'd do, Shubham, is, normally I like to have this all fired up and ready and kept there so that we can dive into it. But since this is a masterclass, I wanted to show people how you kind of connect to StreamAlive, right? So I'm going to
Yes,
do that
please
right
start.
now. So actually,
Absolutely.
So right now you're on my StreamAlive screen, and I've got YouTube, I've got Microsoft Teams, I've got Zoom, and we're constantly expanding the repertoire of platforms that we support. So StreamAlive can work on any platform, but we've engineer it to actually work off the chat in each of these platforms, which is why you need to build it for each platform specifically. And you'll see how when we look at it in the context of Zoom, which is what we're going to do today, right? But the same, it's very similar in terms of how it works on YouTube Live or Microsoft Teams. And it's a bit of a different approach for in-person events where there's a QR code you scan and then you join that virtual chat room that we just talked about. Yeah. So over here, before I go in here, you got the home screen, which is where we are. We got a run of shows. So you got different runs of shows. We got some sample ones, which is essentially, think of it just like you have slides. This is slides plus interactions, right? So I've got something for a StreamAlive intro webinar, which I created for today, which is what I'm going to take you through. And I've attached that to the meeting that we're going to have today. We look at the other things later. And this is my team settings. I have a pro plan, which is one of the perks of the job. I don't have to pay for a pro plan. I get it for free. So one of the perks of being the founder of the company.
Right.
So over here, if I look at my Zoom meetings, I had one this morning with an amazing company called Thredo in the community management space. We're looking at, I told you, I think we're looking at powering their awards coming up in about 10 days time. I ran a test with my co-founder Tina for this session that we're going to have here, and hopefully everything behaves like it just did in the test, right? I've already connected a run of show. I've attached, I mean, I can choose any of those runs of shows that I've had. So that webinar run of show is already connected. All there is left to do is to really connect to this meeting, right?
Let's get to it, yeah.
Speaking of which, this meeting, I just said, this is it. This is a link for it. Hopefully I've got the right link there. We'll know in a second. And when I click on connect over here, this is your meeting, Shubham. So you probably have a request from the StreamAlive bot that's knocking on the door of this meeting, requesting to join. Do you see that?
Yes. Let me just allow it.
I promise you, it's a very well-behaved bot. So if you can just let that in.
Okay. So I think it's in.
Perfect. I'm just going to go full screen mode here, as we call it, theater mode. And all that's left to do is really start my run of show. Right. So like I told you, I mean, our philosophy is we need to talk less and listen more. And hopefully we'll show you how we're looking at making that happen. But we're starting with something we're all familiar with a classic slide. So we are an audience engagement platform for live sessions. By the way, anyone, if you have any questions, please just keep putting your questions in here because we have a feature called Quick Questions. Oh, okay. Someone actually asked, can you rename the StreamAlive bot? You absolutely can. People have called it Raju in the most recent meetings. Don't ask me why, but you absolutely can.
Okay.
So please ask any questions you have. Ask it like you would ask a human a question, and StreamAlive will pick up. It picks up 90% of the questions, and it's getting better and better. Yeah. So actually, I'm curious about this. So this is a classic example of an interaction, right? This is our best icebreaker interaction. So I want to know where everybody is from. So everyone, if you can, and this is the most powerful and frictionless part about StreamAlive, please go to the Zoom chat itself. You don't need to go anywhere else. Oh, okay. We've got Tina from New York. We've got Shubham from Jaipur. We've got a lot of people from India. So I'm actually going to zoom in over India. And this is really powerful if you think about it, because we're having a conversation, you're interacting through the chat. You don't have to go to any other room for me to know that we have Asta from Delhi and that we've got a couple more people there. We've got Sunena from Hyderabad. Hey, Sunena. We've got Shreya from Chennai. We've got a couple of people from, where is this? Okay, we've got folks from Shillong. We've got Constantine and we've got somebody else over there. So we've got people from all over. We've got some people from here as well. We've got Bob from Salzburg in Austria. So pretty much we've covered 1, 2, 3 different time zones. We don't have anyone from the West Coast. It's still very early in the morning over there. But just imagine, a lot of people, the world lighting up like a Christmas tree. And back to that earlier point, we are not ignoring 98% of the responses. We are acknowledging 100% of the responses, right? So, okay, by the way, this is a quiz question. I love quizzes. This gentleman you see here is a very, very amazing gentleman who invented a software that changed how people communicate with each other in boardrooms, in classrooms, and every other room. Interestingly, his company was the first VC investment by Apple. So that's a hint as well. So Apple invested in Robert Gaskin's company. And he invented a software that we use even today, and it's used across these different places. So this is a quiz question. Right. If you can just type in the chat, folks, what software do you think Mr. Gaskins invented 38 years ago?
Nice. Winners will get $1,000 each, right? I'm kidding. I'm not Mr. Beast.
How about $12? I'm happy to actually down the line mail a copy of the book to some of the most participative people. We can also give a StreamAlive t-shirt. So it's not $1,000, but it's certainly notional values. Oh wow, okay, we got Skype. Any more answers, folks?
Yeah, please.
I'm not going to declare the answers yet.
More contestants. Okay, Tushar and my answers the same.
Oh, you got a couple of people putting PowerPoint. Okay, any more? Okay, the answer is actually PowerPoint.
Okay.
And it very interestingly, here's a piece of trivia. It was the first venture capital investment by Apple, and it was acquired by Microsoft because, as you all know, is Microsoft PowerPoint. So how's that for trivia? The fact that Apple made its first return on venture investment from Microsoft, right? So our thesis is you got PowerPoint for 38 years, but you're still talking. We're not listening. And that's what we want to change. We want to make it a two-way conversation like we just did with the word cloud and the map to engage audiences. You asked me this question earlier, so it's a bit of a repetition in terms of who uses StreamAlive. It's sellers, entertainers, gamers, trainers, managers, all of these folks at so many of these different occasions and using us on these different platforms. Just to move ahead a bit, by the way, I'm just curious about folks here. If you were to use StreamAlive, I would love to know which of these you think might be the most relevant for you. So just type either 1 or 2, or if it's gaming and entertainment, type 3 or 4 or 5 in the chat. And this is a great way to show you how we kind of reimagine polls, right? To make it a lot more interactive.
Something else. I wonder what might be the option 5. Let me put.
Let me just restart this for a second. 1 second. Let's go through that.
We type in our answers again.
You do, yes. And it's never a software demo if you don't have a bug. So I think we have a bug right now in terms of the thing, but this is supposed to go. So it's an auspicious thing when you have a bug.
Yeah.
Right. Our whole thing is presenters need to become performers, presentations need to become interactive, and audiences need to become participants. And that's what we're trying to enable with StreamAlive. Convert people from presenters to performers and audiences to participants.
Right.
And fingers crossed on this one working as advertised. Let's give it a shot. That's the best way. This is a feature called Transient Thoughts. And I just thought, Shubham, since we're still in the first week of the new year, it's still a good time to ask people what their New Year resolutions are.
Cool.
And a quick question to you. The StreamAlive bot is still in the room, right? You haven't kicked it out for some reason. No, StreamAlive bot.
No, it's there.
All good.
And I hope people haven't, broken their New Year resolutions already. So even then you can, put your resolutions. Yeah.
So this is, like, for example, we have some, I think it was Jethro who said, read more. And this is a great example of, features being built by audience feedback. So we had the word cloud, we put it out there, and we had a bunch of users who came back and said, okay, the word cloud is fun, it's interesting. Oh God, that's my resolution. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I didn't type that, but that's exactly what I had in mind too. Same
nice
here,
resolutions, yeah.
Right. It's interesting. We've got reading, we've got health, we've got start learning Spanish. Never too late. Absolutely.
Travel.
So this is a great example of user-generated feedback. We had the word cloud, and people said, "Can you give me something for longer form answers? Because what if I have answers that are sentences, right? Learn more about engagement." You certainly came to the right place. Thank you.
Yeah.
And this is beautiful because thank you, everyone. I mean, those are some fascinating answers. And by the way, Shubham, we could move on, and then we could perhaps come back here and say, oh, let's look at all those answers that people gave.
Yeah.
And here are all the amazing, colorful answers that people gave, right? This is really what the platform is about. It's about planning for engagement. It's about tracking engagement. It's about increasing engagement and analyzing engagement. Planning is a run-off show like we showed earlier. So before this meeting happened, I created this run-off show in terms of what I wanted to run, and I showed you how that looks. Tracking engagement is StreamAlive is like a fly on the wall. It's reading the chat in real time. So it's able to pull out any questions that people might have asked. We don't have any more questions after the renaming of the StreamAlive bot, but if anyone were to ask questions, it would automatically be curated and pulled in over here, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't pull Jaipur and New York City and someone typing Salzburg, Austria, and all of those things are not going to be pulled up over here. Neither is eat healthy and learn Spanish, but anything that smells like a question is automatically deciphered by our NLP as being a question. Increase engagement it's a very, very simple formula. Ask people a question and acknowledge their answers. Don't ignore their answers, which is kind of what we've been doing all this time. right?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm just curious about this. Like I told you, you work on Zoom, Teams, and YouTube. Are there any other platforms, or even if it's these platforms, I would love to know what platforms people think they might be using StreamAlive on. And this is a great example of an open-ended poll. Twitch, absolutely. I mean, thank you. That's actually on our roadmap for the next quarter. So Twitch is something we're going to build on, because Twitch and Google Meet are the next two things we're building. Discord, we still haven't figured out, because the video part of Discord is kind of neither here nor there, but it's something that definitely needs more figuring. All right. So this sample size, certainly there's more people looking for Google Meet, so even more impetus to build that out. So interestingly, Google Meet and Twitch are two of the things that we're building out for the next quarter, right? WebEx, fantastic. We certainly want to. YouTube, we already have it, so please do use us for YouTube. WhatsApp, if it makes sense. Actually, I don't know. That's an interesting thing. You have video calls on WhatsApp. You have chat on WhatsApp. In theory, it should make sense, but we still Slack, yes. WebEx, Twitch, fantastic feedback there, right? And this is a great. By the way, that engagement meter around there is on fire each time people start typing, which kind of tells you that you're getting a lot of responses. Telegram, not yet on our roadmap. It's along with WhatsApp, one of those messaging platforms we still need to figure out. But we are having a conversation now, and that I think is the most powerful part of how we're doing this right now, right?
Yeah.
And it can also be, I mean, it's fun and games. It can also be static fun and games, so to speak, with some dynamism thrown in. So, for example, people often ask us, "What else are you building?" And these are some of the features. We got these 5 features. I don't want to spend all the time talking to you about what all we're building at StreamAlive, so I'm just going to talk about one of these. And to make it a bit fun, rather than just picking one of them randomly and saying that I'm going to talk about that, how about we kind of do this? We spin a wheel. It's something very childlike, when you see a wheel spin and then slow down and then
you have to spin it.
Right. It's good fun. So, for example, group games. Okay, just imagine. Suppose I had a word over here. For example, the fundamental currency of StreamAlive is engagement, right? So I could say that my word is engagement, and what StreamAlive will do for group games that we're doing, they're mostly going to be word games to start with. It's going to take the word engagement and rearrange the letters to make an anagram of the word engagement.
Okay.
So just imagine we had a 5-minute break. Okay, Shubham, we tell everybody, hey, folks, we're going to take a comfort break. Go grab your water, your tea, your coffee, whatever you want. So group games is like, imagine an anagram of engagement coming up there. And we're telling people that, tell us what this word is. Right? And people are trying to rack in their heads what it is and stuff. And then someone actually types the correct word engagement, and that word engagement explodes and it says, oh, wow, okay, David gave the correct answer and David's a winner for this. So just doing, group games where it automatically happens, starting with anagrams, and then you can do versions of Wordle and stuff like that, just to make it fun, right? So our whole thing is, it doesn't have to be all serious, make it interactive, make it fun. And group games is one way towards that. Link library, jumping jackpot, pulsing points, winning wheel, they're all other things that we're building. As you can see, we're pretty obsessed with alliterations. So every single one of our features are alliterations.
Right.
Wonder words, magic maps. So we just started off as a joke, and then it ended up being the standard thing for all of our features. So this, by the way, is analytics, where I could actually jump into, and at the end of this session, once we cover the questions, and I know we don't want to do any more interactions here, I'm going to jump out and actually show you the analytics for today's session.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty powerful, where we can look at who interacted the most, what are the engagement charts, what are the results, and what are the questions we had.
Right.
Which is the last part of, plan, track, increase, and analyze engagement. We don't we have some more questions over here. WhatsApp makes sense since there's a question mark there. It came in. Can you name the StreamAlive bot? Yes.
And I would just say to our participants that if you have any questions at any point, just type your questions in. We want to see your questions on this chart where we can take it at the end. So yeah.
And tell your caller how you want to handle the question, Shubham. We're happy to look at. So interesting. No Facebook. Yes. Facebook Live. Facebook Live is certainly up there, and I think so. Thanks for reminding me. Facebook Live and LinkedIn Live are two very, very powerful live platforms that we'll be building StreamAlive for.
Right.
And that's going to happen maybe in the second quarter of 2023.
Yeah.
So that is there, and that's really what we do. So I'm happy to otherwise actually disconnect from this Zoom and show you what the analytics looks for this, but that's what we are, an audience engagement platform for live sessions.
Right.
I showed you how we do it in a live online event for Zoom. It works very similarly for live streams, for Microsoft Teams for other slide streams and for in-person events as well.
Right.
And if I were to disconnect from the event and go into the analytics and say, analyze this event that we just finished, here's everything I need to know about what happened. We had 67 comments by 14 people. Thank you, 14 people, for participating. And on an average 5 per minute, at peak we had 24. So I'm curious about where we had that peak. I ran seven interactions and got 53 responses to those. So we're actually going to pick up someone over here later and send out a prize for them. So it's going to be a surprise to one of them. So I'll work with you later on this, Shubham. But someone from your community should be getting a Name Place Animal Thing book and or a t-shirt as well.
Yes.
So this tells us who participated, how often. And we're actually coming up with a feature called Winning Wheel that's going to spin around contestants' names. I wish we had it now to spin around all the participants' names, everyone who commented, and give someone a prize.
Right.
Here's our peak. We had the maximum peak for transient thoughts. As you saw, we actually got a lot of answers, and I click on that, it shows me the answers we got for that. All right. You can replay results here as well. So you could, for example, look at all those different interactions we ran. And people use this on social media. So people take this and then post it on Facebook and LinkedIn and other platforms to say, these are the kind of responses we got for the session that we did. And I could look at the quick questions and look at all the questions that people asked as well. And if I were to click on email reports, I would get a mother of all Excel files that's entirely macro enabled and has all of this data in there as well.
Super.
Quick things, settings, you can change color and branding, all of that. Anyone interested, just reach out. Happy to take you through it, or better still, just sign up at streamalive.com. I'm going to stop share here before we take the question, but go on, Shubham. What is the question?
Yeah, so we have a question from CJ. He was asking about your thoughts on FTX.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't really have too many thoughts on FTX.
I mean, how do we,
how do we, sorry, come again?
How do we, how do you want to approach FTX? Like, what's the context? I mean, with StreamAlive, what do you see? Do you see any possibilities there in, let's say, with crypto, or, I mean, any use case?
At this point, I mean, the connective tissue we've seen, keeping FTX aside, I mean, I'm taking it largely as a question about Web3 and about crypto, right? Some of these terms are used pretty interchangeably in terms of Web3, crypto, and the metaverse, and I think it's important to separate them out. With crypto and Web3, one use case we've been seeing is that a lot of crypto and Web3 are about community. Right? And a lot of these are about communities that have evolved on Discord and then take on a live somewhere else. In fact, we have 1 or 2 users who actually run YouTube live streams and communities around crypto.
Right.
And they use YouTube Live as a vehicle to engage with their audience. So community, by definition of the word, is many to many. It's conversations happening, or at least it's two-way conversation, which unfortunately cannot happen on YouTube Live unless you use StreamAlive. So we are enabling community to actually be community, because all those things that are being called communities have been monologues all this time. And we're helping them actually become community, and therefore, in a way, I think facilitating the kind of connections that are requisite for a lot of the Web3 and crypto kind of communities, right? I kept the metaverse and those kind of things aside because we've been looking at some of those things in terms of, okay, if people can interact like they're doing in a Zoom room here or a Teams room here or a YouTube Live, they can do a similar thing in the metaverse as well. So how can you take sensory or tactile inputs from people, which might be movements over there, and translate that into group speak like we're doing over here at StreamAlive? I think that's a direction you might go down based on adoption and the kind of use cases that come up. But at this point, it's not something we're doubling down on. We want to first build it out for Facebook Live, then go for Workplace by Meta, because we have a couple of large companies with about 20,000 people who are looking to use StreamAlive in Workplace by Meta. And from there, I think there will be a natural transition, so to speak, going on to things like the metaverse. Right?
Nice. So
CJ, the question was specifically about FTX. I mean, besides the public thing that you read about there and everything, I don't have much more to add. And I think
we don't have anything
cycles dedicated
any information.
To that anyway.
So I mean, I'll request our participants to ask any questions that they might have. So I mean, Lux, since we have some time at our hand, Do you want to, spin that wheel again and talk about something else out of, those 5 things for that enlisted like group gaming? Do you want to show something else to our participants today and talk about StreamAlive from that perspective?
Um, Happy to. I mean, I can go back to the wheel. I can just talk about 1 or 2 features.
Yeah,
that
yeah, please go ahead.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the features are coming in from conversations we're having with people. Like I told you, the use case for the doctor teaching endocrinology is very different from an English teacher on YouTube who's teaching people to take the IELTS exam, right? So we're constantly straddling this, and a YouTuber is very different from someone on Microsoft Teams, is very different from someone on Zoom, is absolutely different from someone using it for an in-person event. So one of the things, I mean, I can tell you as a third-time startup founder, one of the big challenges is listening to your audience, but at the same time, this sounds wrong to say, at the same time, not listening to them, right?
Okay.
Because you want to listen, but if you were to build everything that everyone asks you to build, you'd end up having something that looks like a digital Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, yeah.
So to some extent, the product team and my colleagues and me, a couple of whom are on the call today, and our challenge really is to figure out which of these do we want to take forward and which of these are relevant and applicable to a larger cohort of users rather than just that universe of one.
Right.
So we constantly keep getting feedback. We wait for more people to say what they like. In fact, now we have suggestion methods as well, where you can suggest within the app and within the website as to what you want to see and things. And then based on how much it kind of replicates real world behavior and how relevant it is and what all use cases is it relevant for an all hands and a town hall and a live stream, you kind of look at building it out, right? So like this winning wheel I told you is something that we had people across the spectrum ask for, which is where, just imagine right now we've got 15 people in the room over here. Imagine I pressed a button and a wheel spun around with all 15 of our names. And it spins, and then finally it ends on Tushar's name, and Tushar gets some swag or a prize for it or something like that.
Right.
I mean, Tushar is from the gaming ecosystem. We're actually working with him and companies like his, like Streamo and others, to figure out the use case for gaming, which is a totally different ecosystem onto itself. And that's going to be a prerequisite for us to jump onto the world of Twitch.
Yeah.
We got people who use us in cohort-based courses who, for example, if I'm teaching public speaking over here, and let's say I ask the 15 of you, what's your level of comfort on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is super comfortable, I'm Barack Obama, and 1 is I'm scared shitless when I get on stage to speak at an event. What is your level of comfort with public speaking? And I ask everyone to give a score. Now, this is a feature called pulsing points,
right?
Where just imagine, you know those graphic equalizers that jump up and down with numbers. So just imagine people are typing 1 and the 1 jumps and then the 2 jumps and the 3 jumps, and it says the average for this cohort of 15 is maybe 2.3.
Right.
And then hopefully I do this 1 hour class on public speaking and fantastically, teach you how to do better things and stuff. And at the end of it, I ask you the same question. And hopefully everyone has moved somewhere above 2.3 and you're not at 2.3 anymore, maybe at 3.4 or something like that, right?
Right.
So that's a feature called pulsing points, which is simply the ability for a cohort to very quickly come up with a weighted average score on what is the average for the entire class. Right?
Wonderful.
So a lot of things like that are happening. I think, starting with that digital hand raising, there's a lot more you can do through chat. And when you add layers of intelligence. So I don't know if you noticed, but in the map, somebody said, I think, hi from some city. And the algorithm actually ignored the hi from and looked only for the location, because at that point it's saying, exactly, right? Because it's intelligent enough to know that I'm not interested in anything at this point of time except something that is a geographical location that I can plot on a map.
Wow.
So when you give context like that, it's pretty powerful. I wish the poles behaved as they were supposed to, where the poles literally dance and people have described it as a pole dance, which is actually what it is. It is like a pole, right? The numbers and bars racing against each other. So this whole visual interactions, giving a visual voice to the audience through chat is something unique.
Absolutely.
It's something nobody else does. And we're pretty proud about how powerful it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've been hosting such events for a long time now. And I think this has been the most interactive one so far, where, audiences have actively participated, gave answers, gave a piece of their mind. So, I mean, kudos to you and your team for working on something so exciting as StreamAlive. And we hope that you continue to, wow us with, new features and make it, more and more fun. So thank you so much, Lux, for this, very to the point masterclass. We all saw what StreamAlive is capable of. Any last words that you'd like to, share with our participants? Tushar is also leaving a comment. Yes, Tushar, we agree with you. Lux, you're such fun. Now I feel great use case for StreamAlive stand-up comedy. And yeah, fun fact, Lux is a stand-up comic who's performed in New York circuits, right? Lux, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you. It's thank you, Tushar. And I mean, I don't know if I should thank you or what for the slight embarrassment there, but it is stand-up is, I mean, comedy is a weakness. So it's something I've thoroughly enjoyed for a long time. And I think it's part of my extended midlife crisis, so to speak. So stand-up comedy is something I've thoroughly enjoyed. And funnily enough, it's a resolution for 2023 to get back to it. I was doing it till just before the pandemic, performed at the Comedy Cellar a couple of times, and I performed once in Jaipur as well.
Oh, nice.
And hopefully we'll do it again. Writing some new material. It's I think one of the most fascinating things, because after I started learning stand-up comedy, I actually saw behavioral changes. Like I would go to an airport and stop looking at my phone, because I would be looking around at people instead for material
Observing
that I can write
people,
and use. Observing people, right? I mean,
Yep.
this makes you so much more observational, and I think that's very powerful. And that journey led me, interestingly, on a total side note, it's up on our website, but it led me to improv comedy as well, which I'm a big fan of too. Improv comedy, for those who are not familiar, is entirely improvised. It's not scripted. It happens in the moment. If you're familiar with the show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's improv comedy.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And about 6 months ago, we ran a show. I think we just put the video up last week with this group called Improv Comedy Mumbai, where we did an entire improv comedy show at StreamAlive, and it was powered by audience suggestions that were typed in the chat by the audience on Zoom, and the performers performed to that. So they would ask a question like, "Okay, which character is he?" And people would say everything from Elon Musk to Mickey Mouse, and then the performers would pick one of them and go with it, and just riff off it. So it was a live entertainment show using audience inputs to do that, and I think that's pretty powerful as well. And our hope is that this becomes a norm. Like, you mentioned, Shubham, that's very kind of you, saying this is the most interactive session you had on TFC, but I'm hoping that is not the case, because I'm hoping a lot of the sessions that happen after this are even more interactive. And if any of them want to use StreamAlive, where to point them to. But
certainly,
I think that should become the norm, where suddenly each of these sessions like this are dialogues and they're not monologues. And that's the world we're hoping to see and make happen.
Thank you. Thank you for making this world better, Lux. And we certainly hope that we catch up soon with another session, with another masterclass or an interview. And thank you, everyone, for coming, for participating so actively. We'll certainly choose a winner, and we'll be sending something your way. We have a surprise for you. Of course, Lux's book is going to be there. And
the t-shirt, not this one, a fresh one.
Yes. Thank you, Lux. Thank you
very much. This was a lot of fun, and thank you everyone for being such an amazing participative audience. Thanks, folks.
Thank you and welcome.
Have a lovely rest of your day.
Yes. Bye-bye. Take care. And cut. That's it for today's episode, guys. If you really liked it, please subscribe to the 1000 Faces Club and press the bell icon below so that you don't miss any videos from us. Thank you.